Shalom and welcome to another episode in our series called Picture This from Egypt. Today is gonna blow you away because we're standing right now outside the huge temple of Karnak on the east side of the Nile River here in Luxor. When we try to picture the grandeur of an Egyptian temple, it's hard to wrap our minds around how large it was. This is just the first of many pylons, as they're called. And what we're going to do is walk in through the first pylon, see a few of the reliefs on the way, talk about the history of this temple. This stood since the 20th century BC, developed over the next hundreds of years. So we're going to talk about guys like Thutmose III, Hatshepsut, Ramses II, his father Seti I. And you can see we're not alone either. So we're going to begin by walking into the temple as we pass by the Sphinx, this avenue of Sphinx that connected this temple of Karnak with the temple of Luxor on the shoreline of the Nile River. Let's begin this adventure. The entrance to this massive temple would have included a 1.5 mile long avenue of the Sphinx. And we can see some of these Sphinx here on this left side as well as on the right side. This particular one is well detailed, with Ra being the protection god of Ramses and other pharaohs who contributed to the building of this huge temple. As we walk in through this first pylon, notice how high it is. Again, we try to picture the grand size of this temple. It's hard to imagine how large it is. So as we walk into the first pylon, the first thing that we see inside is a mud wall made of bricks. And if you look closely, they have straw, which should remind us of the story of the Israelites here in Egypt. This mud wall was used as a ramp inside of this first pylon. All kinds of reliefs, hieroglyphics. On this second pylon, we'll be walking in to this area of the temple in just a moment, but again, the grand scale of this temple is absolutely incredible. Let's take a look outside of this pylon. There you see behind me, right there, a figure of another pharaoh. His name is Shoshenq. Now, most scholars would attribute the name Shoshenq with what appears in 1 Kings chapter 14, being one and the same with a guy named Shishak. There he is. He's depicted as conquering cities, according to 1 Kings 14. And I'll turn this camera around just in a moment so that you can see the rings, the victory rings. But the question is this the Shishak of the Bible? So let's zoom into this guy who's depicted on this relief wall. So there he is. Most biblical scholars would say he's one and the same, Shoshenq and Shishak. However, I find it interesting that there's revised chronology that suggests that they're not the same. And Shoshenq lived maybe 100 years after the 10th century. But look at these victory rings that we see. These are representing cities that were taken by this pharaoh, Shoshenq. So a question about biblical history and relating archaeology to the biblical narrative. And now we'll leave Shoshenq and walk into this Hypostyle hallway. This is a massive hallway consisting of 134 pillars. Seti I had a hand in this. Ramses II, who was the son of Seti. Look how massive these pillars are, and if we look closely, even at the ceiling, you can see very impressive colors still well preserved here in this hallway. Everywhere you go, you see hieroglyphics etched into the pillars. And picture the grandeur of this hallway in itself. We'll continue to try to picture how large this temple really was by looking at this obelisk, built and put in position by Thutmose I, who was the father of Queen Hatshepsut. She too also has an obelisk, and it's right there. This obelisk is 60 feet high and quite impressive.
The function of the obelisk is to show
Let's continue over to the wall dedicated to Thutmose III. Take one more look close up of this obelisk. As we get close to the end of this visit to Karnak, we need to be impressed by this guy. Thutmose III, he had some say 17, 18, even up to 20 military campaigns. And it's all reflected on this wall where we have the description of how a city named Megiddo in Israel was taken. You can see these Hittite representations and the rings, but we're concerned about this particular ring right there. The story, according to traditional chronology, happened in 1468 or around there, BC. And long story short is Thutmose III decided not to take the advice of his generals and took the narrow pass called the Aruna Pass in order to conquer and take this city of Megiddo. And there is Megiddo as written in hieroglyphics. It's an amazing story. He did not take the Yokneam Pass nor the Dotan Pass, but took the narrow passes against the advice of his generals. So we can picture the military campaigns of Thutmose III here on this wall within the Temple of Karnak. Last but not least, the Holy Chamber and the Holy of Holies, as perhaps we would refer to it as. This is the inner sanctuary of the temple. And you can see this stone inside of this chamber. Other Egyptian temples have similar constructions of their temple and an inner chamber like this one. We didn't at all do justice to the Temple of Karnak, as we have only seen a few things here, but I hope that you get a good picture of the size of this temple, the historical connections, the impressive pillars that are standing today. Pharaohs like Seti I, Thutmose III, Ramses II, Shishak or Shoshenq. So as we walk out of this hypostyle hallway once again, we'll just walk through these pillars, grab some shade, and just take it in, if you will. Walking through these massive pillars, it's quite impressive. So thanks for hanging out here today with me in Luxor at the Temple of Karnak. We've seen a little of this temple, and yet I hope enough that gives you the impression so that you can picture what this looked like back in the days of ancient Egypt. Until next time, shalom.